You ever hear a laugh that cuts deeper than a knife? I did. 3 seconds in a Seattle bank, and my sister's voice sliced through me like winter rain through a cheap coat. "We don't fund your little charities, Emma," she said, loud enough for every suit in the room to turn. I'm Emma Carter, the girl who's always been less than in my family's eyes, the one they laughed off as a dreamer with nothing but a laptop and a secondhand scarf. But that day, Lauren's laugh didn't just sting. It woke something in me, something that could crash her entire empire. Stick around, because what I did next didn't just empty her bank, it rewrote who I am. It was a gray morning in Seattle, the kind where the Puget Sound smells like salt and regret. I'd walked into Pacific Trust Bank, my boots scuffing the marble floor, to withdraw $200. Not from me, for the homeless shelter down on Pine Street, where kids sleep on cots and dream of warm meals. I've been there, handing out blankets, knowing $200 could mean a week of hot soup. My coat was thrift store wool, patched at the elbows, but I stood tall, my navy scarf, knitted by my grandfather years ago, wrapped tight around my neck. The bank smelled like leather and ambition, all glass walls and polished desks. I was invisible to the tellers until I stepped to the counter. Then I heard her. Lauren, my older sister, tech-heiress, all sleek blonde hair and designer heels, striding across the floor like she owned the place. She did, almost. Pacific Trust was her playground, her name on every VIP list. "Emma," she purred, her voice dripping with fake pity. "We don't fund your little charities here." The room froze. A guy in a pinstripe suit smirked. A teller looked away. My cheeks burned, but I didn't flinch. I've heard worse from her. Years of "you'll never be enough" at family dinners, her stealing my coding projects and calling them hers. But this was public. I clutched my scarf, the wool rough under my fingers, and met her eyes. "I just need $200, I said, voice steady. She laughed again, sharper, like she'd won something. "Maybe try a pawn shop," she said, turning away. The room spun, but I didn't break. I walked out of Pacific Trust Bank with my head high, but my heart was a furnace. Lauren's laugh echoed in my skull, her words, "Maybe try a pawn shop," looping like a bad track. The Seattle rain had started, slicking the sidewalks, turning the city into a mirror of my mood. I pulled my scarf tighter, the navy wool damp but warm, and headed back to my studio apartment in Capitol Hill. It's a shoebox, peeling paints, a single window, a mattress I got off Craigslist, but it's mine. No one's ever handed me anything, not like Lauren, who's been swimming in our family's tech fortune since she could talk. Me, I've been scraping by, coding late nights, pouring my soul into projects she'd steal and parade as her own. But that $200, that was for the shelter kids, not me. And Lauren made it a spectacle. Back in my apartment, the air smelled like coffee and old books. I tossed my coat on a chair, the patched elbows sagging, and boiled water for tea I wouldn't drink. My phone buzzed, probably Mrs. Lopez from the shelter, checking if I'd gotten the cash. I ignored it and sat at my rickety table, staring at the laptop I keep hidden under a loose floorboard. It's not fancy, just a beat-up Dell, but it's my lifeline. I powered it on, the screen flickering like it was as tired as me. 3 logins, a thumbprint, a 12-digit code from a burner phone, and a passphrase I typed slow. Raven takes flight. The interface bloomed, a sleek dashboard no one in my family knew existed. I'm Shadow Raven, not Emma Carter, the girl they mocked, but the co-founder of Ravenlock, a crypto fund worth $5 billion. I built it from nothing, coding the blockchain in college, while Lauren partied and our family called me the quiet one. My partner Jax handled the investors, I handled the tech. We funneled Ravenlock through shell companies, keeping my name off everything. Why? Because I knew my family, especially Lauren, would try to take it. And guess what? Pacific Trust, Lauren's shiny bank, hosts Ravenlock's liquidity. She signed the contract last year, clueless that she was partnering with me. I leaned back, the chair creaking. and pulled up the bank's client portal. My $200 request was still pending, but then I saw it. Account frozen. Authorized by L. Carter. Lauren didn't just mock me, she'd locked me out of my own money. My pulse spiked, not from fear, but from clarity. This wasn't just personal, it was war. I scrolled through Ravenlock's dashboard, the numbers glowing. $5 billion in assets, all tied to Pacific Trust servers. I could pull it all, every cent, crash her bank's liquidity, and she'd never see it coming. But I needed proof she'd crossed me, something to make it sting. I hacked into the bank's internal logs, not hard when you designed half their security protocols as an unpaid intern years ago. There it was, Lauren's digital signature on the freeze order, time-stamped 10 minutes after I left. She added a note, client deemed high risk, no further transactions. High risk? Me, who'd never missed a bill? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to hit the command that would drain her bank. But I stopped. Revenge needed precision, not rage. I typed a different code, one that locked Pacific's Trust transaction system temporarily. Nothing illegal, just a glitch to make Lauren sweat. A soft ping. System override successful. Her tellers would be panicking by now, screens frozen, clients fuming. I closed the laptop and stood, my reflection in the window sharp against the rain. I wasn't the girl Lauren mocked anymore. I remembered her at our last family Thanksgiving, smirking as she accidentally deleted my pitch deck for a tech startup. "You're not cut out for this, Em," she'd said, while our Aunt Margaret nodded like it was gospel. They'd always seen me as the spare, the one who never measure up. But I'd built Ravenlock while they slept, and now I held the strings. My phone buzzed again, Mrs. Lopez. I picked up this time. "Emma, any luck?" Her voice was soft, worried. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Not yet, but I'll get it. Double, maybe." She didn't ask questions, just thanked me. I hung up, grabbed my scarf, and headed out. The shelter was a 10-minute walk, and I needed air. The rain soaked my hair, but I didn't care. I passed a neon-lit diner, a couple laughing under an awning, and felt a pang. I used to want their approval. Lauren's, Margaret's, even my mom's. Not anymore. By the time I reached the shelter, my plan was solid. I'd hit Lauren where it hurt, her reputation. Pacific Trust was hosting a tech gala tomorrow night, all Seattle's elite in one room. Lauren would be there, preening for investors. I'd walk in, not as Emma the charity case, but as Shadow Raven, with a QR code linked to Ravenlock's ownership docs. One scan, and her world would crumble. I handed Mrs. Lopez a $20 bill, my last cash, and promised the $200 by tomorrow. She hugged me, her hands warm despite the cold. Back home, I opened my laptop again. The bank's systems were still locked, and X was buzzing with complaints. Pacific Trust down? Worst bank ever. I smiled, just a little. Lauren was probably screaming at her IT team, oblivious to the real storm coming. I scheduled a gala RSVP under Ravenlock Holdings and leaned back, my scarf draped over the chair like a battle flag. Tomorrow, I'd withdraw more than money. I'd take her pride, her power, and every lie she'd ever told about me. The Seattle skyline glittered through my window, a maze of steel and secrets. I sat at my table, the laptop's glow casting shadows on my navy scarf, now slung over the chair like a reminder of who I'd been and who I was becoming. Lauren's freeze on my account wasn't just a slap, it was a declaration. She thought she could bury me, like she'd buried my ideas, my dreams, my place in our family. But I wasn't the quiet Emma she'd mocked at Thanksgiving, the one who'd let her steal my code and smiled through the pain. I was Shadow Raven, and I held $5 billion in my hands. Last night's hack, locking Pacific Trust's systems, was just a warning shot. Tonight, I'd aim for her throne. I open the laptop, the Raven takes flight passphrase unlocking Ravenlock's dashboard. The interface was my sanctuary. Clean lines, encrypted data, $5 billion in crypto assets humming quietly. I'd built this in college, nights when Lauren was out charming venture capitalists, claiming my algorithms as her inspiration. Our family ate it up, Margaret calling her a prodigy, my mom nodding like Lauren hung the moon. Me? I was the afterthought, coding in a dorm room, fueled by instant noodles and spite. Jax, my partner, believed in me when no one else did. He said, "You're the brains, Emma. Let's make them choke on their laughter." So we did. Ravenlock was untouchable, hidden behind layers of anonymity, until Lawrence Banks signed on to host its liquidity, blind to my name in the fine print. I pulled up the hack's aftermath. Pacific Trust servers were still glitching. Transactions stalled. X-posts were brutal. Pacific Trust crashed again. Fire the CEO. I could picture Lauren in her penthouse office screaming at tech support, her perfect hair unraveling. Good. Let her squirm. But I needed more than chaos. I needed her exposed. I dug deeper into the bank's logs, my fingers flying. There. An email from Lauren to her CFO, sent an hour after she froze my account. Emma's a liability. Keep her locked out. No paper trail. No paper trail? Too late, sis. I saved the email. Timestamped, undeniable. Then I checked Ravenlock's contract with Pacific Trust. Lauren had signed it herself, oblivious that she was tying her bank to my empire. The clause I'd written, full withdrawal rights reserved by primary stakeholder, gave me the power to pull every cent. $5 billion? Gone in a click. But I hesitated. Draining the bank would hurt her, sure, but it also tanked the jobs of tellers, clerks, people like Mrs. Lopez who had nothing to do with Lauren's games. I wasn't her. I didn't destroy for sport. Instead, I coded a new command, a system-wide alert set to broadcast at the gala tonight, revealing Ravenlock's true owner, me. One QR code, scanned by the right person, and Lauren's lies would unravel in front of Seattle's elite. Flashbacks hit hard as I worked. I was 16, showing Lauren my first app, a budgeting tool for low-income families. She'd laughed, called it cute, then pitched it to a startup incubator as her own. I got nothing. She got a $50,000 grant. At family dinners, she'd smirk while Margaret praised her vision. My mom would pat my hand and say, "You'll find your place, Emma." I found it, all right, in the shadows, building something they couldn't touch. But the hurt lingered, a bruise I couldn't ignore. Tonight, I'd turn that pain into power. I tested the alert code. Ravenlock Holdings, primary stakeholder, E. Carter. Pacific Trust contract, terminated. Clean, brutal, final. I set it to trigger at 9 p.m., mid-gala, when Lauren would be at her peak, charming investors. My phone buzzed. Jax, "You sure about this? It's nuclear." I typed back, "She froze my account. She's done." He sent a thumbs up. Jax knew better than to argue when I was this focused. I stood, stretching, and caught my reflection in the window. My eyes were sharp, no trace of the girl who'd cried when Lauren deleted her pitch deck. I grabbed my scarf, the wool soft but heavy with memory. Grandpa had knitted it for me when I was 10, after I fixed his old radio with a screwdriver and duct tape. "You've got a spark, Emma," he'd said. "Don't let them dim it." He was the only one who saw me, who believed I could build something real. Lauren mocked him, too, called him a sentimental old man. She'd regret that tonight. The shelter was my next stop. I owed Mrs. Lopez an update. The rain had stopped, leaving Seattle slick and glowing. I passed a tech billboard with Lauren's face, her smile all teeth and lies. My stomach twisted, but I kept walking. At the shelter, Mrs. Lopez was sorting blankets, her hands quick despite her age. "Any luck with the $200? She asked, hopeful. I forced a smile. "Tomorrow, I promise. Maybe more." She didn't push, just nodded, her trust heavier than any contract. Back home, I prepped for the gala. No thrift store coat tonight, a tailored black blazer sharp enough to cut through Lauren's world. I slipped the QR code into a sleek folio, my fingers steady. The bank's systems were still limping, ex-posts growing angrier. Pacific Trust is a joke. Class action? Lauren was drowning, and she didn't even know I'd thrown the first stone. I checked the clock, 6 p.m., 3 hours until the gala, 3 hours until I walked into her kingdom and tore it down. My scarf stayed on the chair, a quiet promise. I wasn't hiding anymore. Tonight, I'd make her see me. The gala was a glittering cage, all chandeliers and champagne flutes, Seattle's tech elite preening under the glow of a waterfront ballroom. I stepped through the doors of the Grand Meridian Hotel, my black blazer sharp as a blade, the folio with the QR code tucked under my arm like a loaded gun. The air smelled of citrus and wealth, a far cry from my Capitol Hill Studios coffee and dust scent. My boots clicked softly on the polished floor, drawing a few curious glances. Nobody recognized Emma Carter, the nobody's sister, but they'd know Shadow Raven soon enough. Lauren was across the room, radiant in a silver gown, laughing with the venture capitalist whose watch probably cost more than my rent. Her eyes hadn't found me yet, but they would. I'd spent the afternoon perfecting the alert code, ensuring it would hit Pacific Trust servers at 9 p.m. sharp, broadcasting my ownership of Ravenlock to every screen in the bank's network, and, with a little tweak, to the gala's live-streamed feed. The hack I'd triggered last night was still rippling. Ex-posts showed clients pulling funds, calling Pacific Trust a sinking ship. Lauren thought she was untouchable, but I'd already loosened the screws. I sipped a sparkling water, the bubbles sharp on my tongue, and scanned the room. Investors, coders, influencers, everyone Lauren courted to prop up her empire. They were about to see it crumble. At 8:55, I made my move. I approached the gala's tech booth, where a young AV guy was fiddling with cables. "Mind scanning this for the keynote?" I asked, handing him the QR code. He shrugged, oblivious, and linked it to the main screen. Perfect. I stepped back, blending into the crowd as Lauren took the stage, her voice smooth as silk. "Pacific Trust is the future of finance," she said, gesturing to a sleek logo behind her. The crowd clapped, hypnotized. I checked my watch, 8:59. My pulse was steady, but my fingers tightened around the folio. This wasn't just about money. It was about every time she'd made me invisible. The clock hit 9, the screen flickered, and Lauren's logo vanished. In its place, Ravenlock Holdings, primary stakeholder, E. Carter. Pacific Trust contract terminated. Gasps rippled through the room. Lauren froze, her smile a cracked mask. Then the kicker. A leaked email, her order to freeze my account, flashed across the screen, time-stamped and damning. The crowd murmured, phones buzzing as X lit up with screenshots. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm Emma Carter," I said, loud enough to silence the room. "And Ravenlock, that's mine." Lauren's eyes locked on me, wide with panic. She stumbled off the stage, her heels wobbling, and grabbed my arm. "Emma, stop this," she hissed, her voice low but desperate. "You're ruining everything." The crowd parted, watching. I pulled free, meeting her gaze. "You ruined yourself when you froze my account," I said. "Thought I was nothing? Look again." Her face paled as the screen looped the email, now viral on X. A man in a tux muttered, "She's done." Lauren's knees buckled and she sank to the floor, her gown pulling like spilled mercury. "Please," she whispered, tears smudging her mascara. "I have investors, a board. I'll lose it all." For a second, I saw the sister I'd once idolized, the one who'd braid my hair before school. But that girl was gone, replaced by someone who'd built her throne on my pain. "You laughed when I asked for $200, I said, my voice steady. "That was for kids who needed soup, not your ego." I turned to the crowd. Pacific Trust hosts Ravenlock's $5 billion. As of tonight, I'm pulling it. The room erupted. Shouts, camera flashes, ex-posts tagging #LaurenCarterFraud. Lauren grabbed my ankle, sobbing. Emma, I'm your sister. I stepped back. You stopped being that a long time ago. I walked out, the folio still under my arm, as security escorted Lauren away. The night air hit my face, cool and clean, the Puget Sound a dark mirror beyond the hotel. My phone buzzed. Jax. You okay? He texted. I didn't reply yet. I needed this moment, the city's hum mixing with my heartbeat. I'd exposed her, but the victory felt heavy. Lauren's empire was cracking, but what about our family? Margaret, Nate, my mom? They'd be circling soon, smelling blood or money. I hailed a cab, the driver's radio playing a soft jazz tune. Back home, I'd checked the damage. Ravenlock's funds were safe, but Lauren's desperation might push her to retaliate. As a cab wound through Seattle's neon streets, I touched the scarf I'd left at home in my mind's eye. Grandpa's words echoed, "Don't let them dim your spark." I hadn't, but the gala was just the start. Lauren's board would fight back, and my family would try to claw their way in. I leaned against the window, the glass cold against my cheek. The Shelter kids were still waiting for that $200, and I'd deliver, tenfold if I could. But first, I had to protect Ravenlock. Lauren's fall was loud, but the real war was just beginning. The next evening, I stood on a yacht docked at Elliott Bay, the kind of place Lauren would have flaunted on Instagram. The invite had come from Nate, my brother-in-law, with the text dripping in fake warmth. "Family talk, Em. Let's clear the air." I knew better than to trust it, but curiosity and a need to face them pulled me here. The yacht smelled of salt water and expensive cologne, its deck lined with fairy lights and catered hors d'oeuvres. My tailored trousers and navy blouse were understated but sharp, a quiet rebellion against the sequined dresses around me. No scarf tonight. I didn't need armor. Ravenlock's $5 billion was safely rerouted to a new trust, and Lauren's gala meltdown was still trending on X. I was untouchable. For now. Nate spotted me first, his investor grin too wide, like a used car salesman closing a deal. "Emma, you made it," he said, guiding me to a table where Margaret, my aunt, sipped a martini, her Chanel earrings glinting. My mom wasn't here, typical, avoiding the mess she'd helped create. "Quite the show last night," Nate said, his tone too casual. Margaret leaned in, her voice syrupy. "We're just worried about you, dear. All this drama." I raised an eyebrow, sipping my tonic water. "Drama?" Lauren froze my account and lied to her board. I just told the truth. Nate coughed, adjusting his tie. "Look, Emma, we get it. Lauren crossed the line, but families stick together, right?" Margaret nodded, her smile tight. "You've done well with this Raven thing. Why not share the success? We could invest, help you grow." I almost laughed. Share? These were the people who'd called my coding a hobby, while Lauren soaked up their praise. I leaned back, the yacht's gentle sway grounding me. I already grew it. $5 billion, no thanks to you. Their faces twitched, greed flickering behind the concern. Then Nate played his card. "Lauren's in trouble, Em. The board's circling, and she's fragile. You don't want her to lose everything, do you?" "Fragile?" Lauren Hoop smirked while stealing my app ID at 16. I set my glass down, the clink loud in the pause. "She lost everything when she bet against me," I said. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You're being selfish. Your grandfather would have wanted unity." That stung. Grandpa, the one who'd only seen my spark. But I wasn't falling for it. Grandpa wanted me to shine, not to prop up liars. I stood, ready to leave, but Nate grabbed my wrist, his grip too tight. "Wait, we know about Ravenlock's new trust. You moved the funds to that nonprofit, didn't you?" I froze. How did they know? I'd covered my tracks, encrypted everything. "Let go," I said, voice low. He did, but his smirk said he thought he had me. We just want to help, Em. A family stake in your charity. Good PR for everyone. I stepped back. The deck's wood cool under my shoes. My nonprofit's for kids who need soup, not for your portfolio. As I turned, Margaret's voice cut through. You'll regret this, Emma. We're your family. I paused, the Puget Sound's dark water glittering beyond the rail. Family doesn't steal your dreams and call it love, I said, walking away. The yacht's lights blurred as I hit the dock, my breath sharp in the night air. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Lopez. Emma, the shelter got a $2,000 donation today. Anonymous. Was that you? I smiled, the first real one in days. Not me, I said, but I'll match it tomorrow. I'd rerouted Ravenlock's interest, small change, big impact. Back in my studio, I checked my laptop. Ravenlock's funds were secure, but Nate's words gnawed at me. How did he know about the nonprofit? I scanned the trust logs, no breaches, but a flagged login attempt from an IP tied to Pacific Trust. Lauren. She was down, but not out, and she'd roped Nate and Margaret into her fight. X was buzzing with hashtag Lauren Carter fraud, but a new post caught my eye. Whistleblower claims Pacific Trust hid millions. Who's Shadow Raven? My stomach dropped. Someone inside the bank was talking, and my alias was no longer a shadow. I locked the laptop, the room's silence heavy. Lauren's board would meet tomorrow, and Nate's family talk was a warning. They'd come for Ravenlock, or worse, my nonprofit. I needed to protect the shelter kids not just from Lauren's greed, but from the fallout of my own war. Grandpa's voice echoed, "Don't let them dim your spark." I wouldn't, but as I lay on my mattress, the city's hum filtering through the window, a new knot tightened. Lauren's desperation made her dangerous, and Nate's smirk meant they had a plan. I'd won the gala, but this wasn't over. Tomorrow I'd face her board and whatever trap they'd set. The boardroom at Pacific Trust's downtown tower was a fortress of glass and steel, all sharp angles and cold light. I walked in at 10 a.m., my folio heavier than ever, the QR code's aftermath still rippling across Seattle. The gala's viral moment had tanked the bank's stock, and X was a war zone of speculation about Shadow Raven. I wore a tailored gray suit, no scarf, just me, Emma Carter, ready to end this. The board, 7 suits, mostly older, all wary, watched me like I was a bomb with a lit fuse. Lauren wasn't here, her resignation was pending, but I knew she was pulling strings from the shadows. My job was to cut them. I set the folio down, the table's mahogany gleaming under fluorescent lights. I'm here to merge Ravenlock Holdings into a public trust, I said, voice clear. As primary stakeholder, I'm dissolving Pacific Trust's contract and restructuring oversight. A silver-haired man, Mr. Ellison, leaned forward. You've caused quite a stir, Miss Carter. Why now? I met his eyes. Because your bank's built on lies. Lauren hid millions, froze my account, and bet I'd stay quiet. I didn't. Murmurs rippled. A younger board member, Miss Patel, nodded, her pen tapping. I opened the folio, sliding over Ravenlock's ownership docs, my name in black and white. This trust will fund community programs, starting with my nonprofit for homeless kids. Pacific Trust can partner, but only under new ethics rules. Ellison raised an eyebrow. And Lauren? I didn't blink. She's out. Her fraud's documented, emails, transactions, all public now. I projected a timeline on the room's screen. Lauren's embezzlement, siphoning Ravenlock's interest for personal ventures. The board shifted, uncomfortable. Miss Patel spoke up. We've seen the X leaks. A whistleblower's pushing this. Is that you? I shook my head. No. But I'm glad they're talking. The vote was swift, unanimous. Lauren was ousted, her board seat gone. Ravenlock's funds would move to the trust, and I'd oversee the transition. As the board adjourned, Ellison pulled me aside. You're Arthur Carter's granddaughter, aren't you? I nodded, surprised. He'd be proud, he said, his voice soft. I left the tower, the city's gray sky heavy with rain. My nonprofit was safe, but the whistleblower's leaks worried me. Who was digging? And why name Shadow Raven? Back home, I checked X. The leaks were detailed. Bank memos, Lauren's hidden accounts, even a photo of her signing Ravenlock's contract. The whistleblower's handle, at Truthbit, had no profile, just a tagline. Cold speaks louder. My gut twisted. This wasn't a clerk. This was someone who knew tech. Maybe Ravenlock's inner workings. I scanned my laptop's logs again. Another login attempt, this time from a VPN. A hacker. Lauren's doing, or someone else? I strengthened Ravenlock's firewalls, my fingers flying, but the threat felt closer now, like a shadow I couldn't shake. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Lopez. Emma, the shelter's getting donations. $10,000 today. Her joy was infectious, but I stayed cautious. Keep it quiet, I said. I'll visit tomorrow. If the hacker targeted my nonprofit, those kids would suffer. I needed answers. I texted Jax, check at Truthbit, find the source. He replied instantly, on it, stay sharp. Jax was my rock, but even he couldn't predict what Lauren might do next. That night, I walked to the shelter, needing to see the kids. The rain was light, misting my hair. Inside, Mrs. Lopez showed me the new cots, bought with the donations. A girl, maybe 10, drew a thank you card with a raven on it. For the lady who helps, she said. My throat tightened. This was why I fought. Not for revenge, but for them. Back home, I found a new X post from @Truthbit. Shadow Raven's not alone. Pacific Trust's servers hold more secrets. Attached was an encrypted file I couldn't crack. Panic crept in. Was this a trap or a warning? I sat on my mattress, the city's lights blurring outside. Grandpa's words, don't let them dim your spark, felt distant now. The boardroom was a win, but the hacker was a new knot tightening fast. Lauren's ousting hadn't stopped her. She'd found a way to fight dirty. I needed to trace @Truthbit before they exposed Ravenlock, or worse, hurt the shelter. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to dive into the dark web if I had to. The war wasn't over. It was evolving. Tomorrow, I'd hunt the hacker and pray I found them before they found me. The rain was relentless that night, hammering my studio's window like it wanted in. I'd spent hours chasing @Truthbit's digital trail, but the hacker was a ghost. VPNs, proxies, no trace. My laptop sat closed now, its glow replaced by a single lamp casting long shadows. I was drained, the shelter's thank you card still on my table, the raven drawing staring back. Then I saw it, a USB drive, slipped under my door, no note, just a sleek black stick with a silver raven etched on it. My pulse spiked. No one knew my address, not even Jax. I hesitated, then plugged it in, my laptop whirring. A video file loaded. My mom's face filled the screen. Emma, she said, her voice trembling, I owe you this. She sat in her Queen Anne living room, the one I hadn't seen since I was 18, all velvet curtains and antique lamps. Her eyes were tired, not the sharp blue I remembered from childhood scoldings. I've watched you fight, she continued, and I've stayed silent too long. I leaned closer, the rain fading to a hum. Mom never apologized, never admitted fault. This was different. She spoke of the summer I turned 12, when I'd coded my first game, a clunky platformer I'd shown her proudly. Lauren, 16, had taken it to a tech camp, won a prize, and never mentioned me. I saw it happen, Mom said, her hands twisting a handkerchief. I thought praising her would keep the family stable. Your father was sick. The company was failing. Lauren was our lifeline, her charm, her connections. My chest tightened. Stable? They'd let Lauren erase me for their empire. I pushed you away, she said, tears brimming. When you left for college, I told myself you'd be fine, that you didn't need us, but you needed me, and I failed you." She paused, the handkerchief now a knot. "Lauren's rise was my doing. I signed her contracts, covered her mistakes, thinking it protected us all. It didn't. It broke you." I froze, memories flooding. Mom's clipped, "Focus on school, Emma," when I pitched ideas, her silence when Lauren took credit. I thought she didn't care. Now I saw fear, not indifference. The video ended with a plea. "Don't let our mistakes define you," she said. "You're more than our failures." The screen went black and I sat still, the USB drive warm in my hand. The rain roared outside, but inside something shifted. I wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of carrying their weight. I pulled out a box from under my bed, filled with childhood relics. There, in a faded notebook, was my old game's code, scribbled in pencil. Next to it, a note from Grandpa. "Your heart's bigger than their wallets, Em." I smiled, the ache softening. But the USB drive wasn't just a confession. A hidden file auto-opened, a log of Pacific Trust servers tagged with @truthbit's signature. Mom was the whistleblower. She'd leaked Lauren's fraud, risking her own name to give me leverage. Why now? Guilt or a last grab at control? I didn't know. I copied the log, my fingers steady. It showed Lauren's latest move, a backdoor into Ravenlock's old contract, trying to siphon funds before the trust finalized. She'd hired the hacker, I was sure now. I text Jax. "Mom's @truthbit. Lauren's hacking Ravenlock. Lock it down." He replied, "Done. You good?" I wasn't sure. Mom's video had cracked something in me, but forgiveness wasn't simple. I walked to the shelter the next morning, the rain lighter now. Mrs. Lopez was prepping breakfast, the kids laughing over pancakes. "Another donation," she said, eyes bright. $5,000. I nodded, knowing it was Mom's money funneled through her guilt. "Use it well," I said, handing over $200 from my own pocket. The raving car girl hugged me, and for a moment, I felt whole. Back home, I prepped for the tech conference tomorrow, my chance to end Lauren's game. The server log gave me ammo, proof she'd hired a hacker to sabotage Ravenlock. I'd live stream it, let the world see her for what she was. But Mom's words lingered. "Don't let our mistakes define you." Was I fighting for justice or just to win? I didn't know yet. The hacker was still out there, and Lauren's back door was a ticking bomb. I opened my laptop, the Raven USB glowing faintly. The shelter kids needed me to finish this, but so did the girl who'd coded that game at 12. Tomorrow, I'd face the world and decide who I wanted to be. The tech conference buzzed like a hive, all glass walls and neon lights in Seattle's convention center. I stood backstage, my heart a drumbeat against my ribs, the folio in my hands heavier than the $5 billion it represented. The air smelled of coffee and ambition, but to me, it was electric, charged with the weight of what I was about to do. My gray suit was crisp, my hair pulled back, but inside I was a storm, part fury, part fear, part the girl who'd coded her first game at 12, believing the world might care. Lauren's hacker was still out there, a shadow on Ravenlock's edge, but Mom's USB drive had given me the proof I needed. Lauren's back door, her hired cyber thief, her final betrayal. Tonight, I'd live stream the truth and let her empire burn. I'd spent the morning at the shelter, watching the Raven Card girl color a new drawing, a house with a glowing window. "For you," she'd said, her shy smile cracking something in me. I'd hugged her, promising more than $200, promising a future where kids like her weren't invisible. Mrs. Lopez had whispered, "You're their hero, Emma." Hero? I didn't feel like one. I felt like a woman carrying a decade of scars, ready to trade them for justice. Now, as the conference's keynote loomed, I clutched the USB drive, its raven etching cool against my palm. Grandpa's voice echoed, "Your heart's bigger than their wallets, Em." I hoped he was right. The stage manager waved me on. The crowd, tech moguls, coders, ex-influencers, hummed beyond the curtain. I stepped into the spotlight, the mic amplifying my breath. "I'm Emma Carter. You know me as Shadow Raven, the founder of Ravenlock Holdings." Gasps rippled, phones lit up, live streams starting. I plugged the USB into the podium's laptop, and the screen behind me flared. Pacific Trust fraud. L. Carter's embezzlement. The crowd went silent as I scrolled through evidence. Lauren's emails to her hacker, bank logs showing $2 million siphoned from Ravenlock, her signature on the backdoor contract. Each click felt like a hammer, smashing her lies. "This isn't revenge," I said, my throat tight. "It's accountability. My sister, Lauren Carter, stole from Ravenlock. From me. From kids who need soup more than she needs a penthouse." The screen showed the shelter's cots, the Raven card, then Lauren's email ordering my account frozen. The crowd roared, X exploding with hashtag Shadow Raven reveals. I saw Lauren in the back, her silver gown swapped for black, her face pale as death. She pushed through the crowd, climbing the stage steps. "Emma, stop," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You're destroying me." The mic caught every word, broadcasting her panic. I turned, meeting her eyes. "You destroyed yourself," I said, softer now, the hurt bleeding through. "I was 16 when you stole my app, 12 when you took my game. You laughed when I asked for $200 for kids. What did you expect?" Her lips trembled, mascara streaking. "I was scared," she whispered, barely audible. "I had to be the best or they'd leave me. Mom, the board, everyone." For a second, I saw her fear, the sister who'd braided my hair, now drowning in her own choices. But pity was an absolution. "You didn't have to bury me to shine," I said, my voice breaking. "But you did." The crowd was on its feet, some cheering, some filming. Lauren sank to her knees, sobbing, her hands clutching the stage. "Please, Emma, I'll fix it. Don't let them take everything." I knelt beside her, not for the cameras, but for me. "Fix it by telling the truth," I whispered. "Not to me, to them." I gestured to the crowd, the world watching. She shook her head, but I stood, turning back to the mic. "Ravenlock's funds are now a public trust. Every cent goes to communities, starting with my nonprofit. No more lies, no more theft." The applause was deafening, but my eyes stayed on Lauren, crumbled and small. I walked off stage, the folio under my arm, the USB in my pocket. Backstage, Jax was waiting, his grin wide. "You did it, Em. X is calling you a legend." I managed to smile, but my chest ached. Exposing Lauren felt right, but it didn't erase the years she'd stolen. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Lopez. "Shelter's flooded with donations. You're changing lives." Tears pricked my eyes. This was why I fought. But as I left the center, the Puget Sound's dark waves glinting outside, a new text stopped me cold. "Nice show, Shadow Raven, but I'm not done." No sender, just a raven emoji. The hacker. Lauren's pawn, or something bigger? I leaned against a pillar, the city's pulse mixing with mine. The conference had been my stage, but the war wasn't over. Lauren's confession was my next target, and the hacker was a blade at my back. I touched the USB, Grandpa's words grounding me. "Your heart's bigger." I'd need that heart now, because the truth had set me free, and painted a target on my nonprofit. Tomorrow I'd hunt the hacker. Tonight I let the crowd's cheers echo in my soul, a fragile peace before the storm. The morning after the conference, Seattle woke to a soft drizzle, the kind that blurs the line between sky and sea. I sat in my studio, the Raven Card girl's drawing taped to my wall, her glowing house a reminder of what I was fighting for. My laptop hummed, Ravenlock's trust secure, but the hacker's text, nice show, Shadow Raven, but I'm not done, hung like smoke. I traced the Raven emoji to a burner account, but it was a dead end. Lauren was behind this, I knew it, her desperation festering after the stage. My phone buzzed with X notifications. Hashtag Shadow Raven Reveals was trending, clips of Lauren's breakdown looping worldwide. But victory felt hollow when the Shelter kids were still at risk. I needed Lauren to confess, publicly, to stop her hacker. I walked a Pike Place market, needing air, the scent of fresh fish and flowers grounding me. My navy blouse was damp, but I didn't care. I passed a busker strumming a guitar, his melody soft against the crowd's hum, and my heart ached for the simplicity I'd lost. Mom's video, her confession of enabling Lauren, played in my mind. Don't let our mistakes define you. I wanted to believe her, but forgiveness felt like a cliff I wasn't ready to jump off. Then my phone pinged, an email from an unknown sender. Meet me at the market fountain. I can help. K. No signature, just a raven emoji. My pulse spiked. A trap? Or the hacker showing their face? I scanned the market, the fountain's mist catching the light. A girl, maybe 19, stood there, her hoodie soaked, a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She met my eyes, nervous but steady. Emma? I'm Kira, she said, voice low. I'm at Truthbit's coder. My breath caught. The whistleblower's tech hand? She sank onto a cot, the shelter's fluorescent lights harsh on her face. I was scared, she whispered. Mom said I had to be perfect or we'd lose the company. You were better. I hated you for it. Her words hit like a punch, but they also freed something. She wasn't evil, just broken, like me. I don't hate you, I said, my voice soft, but those kids need you to do right. She nodded, trembling, and pulled out her phone. Live on X, she spoke. I'm Lauren Carter. I hired a hacker to hurt Ravenlock, to hurt my sister. I was wrong. Her voice broke and she logged off, sobbing. I didn't comfort her. I walked out, Kira's stream already viral. The drizzle had stopped, the sky clear over the sound. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Lopez, more donations, you saved us. I smiled, tears falling. Grandpa's note, your heart's bigger, felt true now. Lauren's confession closed one wound, but Kira's drive held more. A list of Lauren's allies still circling Ravenlock. The hacker was gone, but the fight wasn't. I headed home, the Raven Card's glowing house in my mind, ready to protect my new family. The kids, Kira, me. The Puget Sound stretched before me like a canvas of molten gold, its waves cradling Seattle's fading sunset in a dance of light and shadow. I sat on a weathered bench, the salt air sharp against my skin, my fingers tracing the edges of a small wooden box I'd carried from Grandpa's cabin in Snohomish. Inside was his USB drive, etched with a tiny raven, holding a coded gift I'd uncovered last night, a final piece of his faith in me. Lauren's confession had set X ablaze, her broken voice, I hired a hacker to hurt my sister, now a viral epitaph for her empire, looping across screens worldwide. My nonprofit was thriving, donations pouring in for the shelter kids, but my heart was still a tangle of triumph, grief, and something new, hope. Tonight, by the sound, I wasn't just Emma Carter or Shadow Raven. I was the girl Grandpa saw, ready to let go of the pain and build a legacy that mattered. 2 days ago, I'd left Lauren sobbing on a shelter cot, Kiera's hidden mic streaming her confession to X. By dawn, hashtag Lauren Carter Confesses was unstoppable. Tech blogs dissected her fall, X users shared clips of her tear-streaked face, and a financial justice podcast called me the coder who rewrote revenge. I didn't linger on the noise. The real victory was the shelter's new pantry, stocked for months, and the Raven card girl's smile, her drawing of a glowing house now taped to my studio wall. Donations hit $75,000 overnight, enough to fund new cots, warm coats, and art classes for the kids. But the hacker's last text, "I'm not done," hung like a storm cloud. Was it Lauren's final jab? Or a new threat? I'd fortified Ravenlock's servers, but doubt gnawed at me, a whisper that peace was still out of reach. Needing an anchor, I'd driven to Grandpa's cabin yesterday, an hour north in Snohomish, where the air smelled of cedar and memory. The cabin was a time capsule, creaky porch, pine walls, the faint whiff of motor oil from his old workbench. I hadn't been there since I was 15, when Grandpa taught me to rewire a lamp, his calloused hand steadying mine. "You've got a spark, Em," he'd said, eyes crinkling. "Build something they can't break." Lauren had scoffed at the cabin, called it a shack for dreamers, but to me, it was sacred. I wandered inside, the floorboards groaning, and found the box tucked behind a rusted toolbox. The USB drive was wrapped in a note, "For Emma, when you're ready to fly." My throat tightened. He'd known I'd need him, even now. Back in my studio last night, I plugged the drive into my laptop, the room's single lamp casting a warm glow. The file was encrypted, but I cracked it with the passphrase I'd guessed. "Spark never fades." A video loaded. Grandpa in his faded flannel sitting in the cabin. "Emma," he said, his voice rough but warm, "if you're watching this, you've built something big. I'm proud. But don't let their shadows dim you. The world needs your heart. Give it to those who deserve it." Tears fell, hot and fast. Then a schematic, a blockchain protocol, simpler than Ravenlock but elegant, designed for micro-donations to shelters. He'd coded it for me years ago, knowing I'd carry his dream. It was his final gift, a way to scale my nonprofit, to help kids like the Raven Card Girl without banks or middlemen. I spent the night coding, weaving Grandpa's protocol into my nonprofit's platform. By morning, it was live, a decentralized app where anyone could donate $1, a dime, directly to shelters. The first test donation, $10 from me, pinged instantly, and I laughed, the sound echoing in my tiny apartment. Mrs. Lopez called an hour later, her voice bright. "Emma, we got $5,000 through your new app. The kids want to thank you." I promised to visit, my heart swelling. This was it, the real withdrawal, not of money, but of my loyalty from a family that never saw me, reinvested in a future that did. But the hacker's threat still loomed. I met Kiara at a coffee shop near Pike Place Market, the air thick with espresso and rain. She traced the Raven emoji text to a dead-end VPN, but her eyes were sharp. "It's not Lauren," she said, sipping her latte. "She's done. Her accounts are frozen, her boards cut her off. This feels bigger." My stomach dropped. Bigger? Ravenlock was secure, but my nonprofit's new app was vulnerable, a beacon for anyone who wanted to hurt me. Kiara handed me a flash drive. "I found this in Lauren's old server logs, a list of her contacts, some tied to offshore funds. One name keeps popping up, Viper. Could be your hacker." I nodded, pocketing the drive. "Stay safe," I told her. She grinned. "You too, Shadow Raven." Back home, I dug into Viper's trail, but it was a maze of proxies. My phone buzzed, Mom again. I hadn't answered her calls since her video confession, her words about enabling Lauren still raw. This time, she left a voicemail. "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm selling the Queen Anne house, giving half to your nonprofit. Please, call me." I sat still, the words sinking in. Half the house? Millions, maybe. But it wasn't about money. It was her trying to rebuild what she'd broken. I didn't call back, not yet. Forgiveness was a seed, not a switch, and I needed time. That evening, I walked to the sound, the wooden box in my bag. The hacker, Viper, remained a knot, but Kiara was on it, and Ravenlock was untouchable. Lauren's confession had closed one chapter, and Mom's gesture opened another. But the real story was mine. I opened the box, pulling out Grandpa's note and the USB drive. His words, "Your heart's bigger than their wallets," felt like a hug across time. I'd built something they couldn't break, a nonprofit that fed kids, a platform that gave power to the powerless, a name that echoed on X, not for revenge, but for hope. The sound's waves lapped softly, and a single raven landed nearby, its eyes glinting in the dusk. I smiled, not shooing it away. It was a sign, maybe, that I'd found my place. My nonprofit's app pinged. Another donation, $50, with a note, "For the kids, from a coder who believes in you." Tears pricked my eyes. This was my legacy, not Lauren's ruin or Mom's guilt, but a world where every kid could draw a glowing house and mean it. Hey, if this story hit you like it did me, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about real people fighting for what's right. Your support keeps these voices alive, just like you've kept mine going. Let's build something unbreakable together. I stood, the box light in my hands, and walked back to my studio, the city's hum a steady pulse. Viper was out there, but I wasn't alone. Kiara, Mrs. Lopez, the Raven Card Girl, Grandpa's Code, they were my family now. The sound faded behind me, but its peace stayed, a quiet certainty that I'd withdrawn everything I needed, my name, my spark, my heart, and I'd never let them dim it again.